All right, good day, everybody. Wherever you are, I'm so happy and I'm so excited to be bringing this to you. It's a very, very big package from CMRC, Creative Mind Real Concept. And I'm most privileged to be the innovator, the initiator of this program. It is a very, very big success to bring this to you. Free Success Project 2025. And this year, I am so happy. We have amazing facilitators, persons who are selfless, who are passionate, who are explicit in every ramification of their discipline, and they will blow your mind. So I want you to keep your tabs and start watching these videos and get excellent results and come back to tell us, and we'll rejoice with you. God bless you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our page. I remain Dada Martins, and today we'll be treating theory of supply. In our previous video, we treated theory of demand, and if you've not checked that out, I admonish you to please check that out. Now, moving on, theory of supply. What is supply? Supply can be defined as the total quantity of goods and services that producers are willing and able to offer for sale in a market at a particular price per period of time. Supply is basically the amount of commodity that a particular producer for a product is actually willing and able to supply to the market in order to sell such product. That's the basic definition of supply. And moving on, we have types of supply: joint or complementary supply, we have composite, we have fixed, competitive supply. Now, when we talk about joint supply, joint supply is the supply of commodities that are used together. For example, we have butter and bread. Everything when you use bread, when you take bread, there's every tendency that you might also consume butter. So the supply of both butter and bread is called a joint or complementary supply. That is the supply of goods that are used together. Now, another type of supply that we have is composite supply. When you talk about composite supply is the supply of goods that have various uses. For example, we have soap. We all know that soap can be used for more than one purpose. It can be used in cooking, it can be used for making liquid soap, and most times it can be used for even medicinal purposes. That's composite supply, the supply of a particular product that can be used for different purposes, even if it is still a single product. Moving on, we have our fixed supply. Fixed supply is the supply of products that remain constant regardless of the market dynamics. For example, we have the supply of land. The supply of land is fixed regardless of the amount of seeds a farmer plants on the land. For example, the supply of such product will remain fixed, and that is what we refer to as fixed supply. The supply of a particular commodity that does not change regardless of how the market behaves. That's the meaning of market dynamics, as I previously mentioned. Now, moving on to the last but not the least, we have competitive supply. Competitive supply is the supply of products that are of close substitute. When we talk about products that are of close substitute, close substitutes are products that are competitive in nature. If a consumer doesn't use this product, he can switch to this product. That is, if there is an increase in price of this product, the consumers will leave that product for another product. That means these products are related. They are identical. They are similar but not identical. Example of such products, we have our Milo and Cowbell. Milo and Cowbell, for example, is a competitive supply. You can either choose to consume Milo or you can choose to consume Cowbell. So the supply of Milo and Cowbell in the market is what we refer to as competitive supply. Moving on, this takes us to the factors influencing supply. Number one, we have price of the product, then price of other commodities. We have cost of production. We have government policy, and we have size of the industry. Now, the first factor influencing the supply of a product is price of the product. If the price of the product increases, following the law of supply, which states that the higher the price of a particular commodity all other things being equal, the higher the quantity supplied into the market. Now, following that, when the price of the product increases, producers will be willing to offer more products to the market. And as a result of that, when the price of the product increases, the quantity supplied to the market would also increase because producers will be willing to sell such products at higher price. Why? In order to gain profit. As we all know, that the main goal of a producer is to make profit. And similarly, if the price of the commodity falls, quantity supplied of the commodity in the market would also fall. So moving on, we have price of other commodities. Now, we all know that. Now, I'm going to make this illustration in in a in a competitive market, for example. Now, you know that sellers of similar products, they see themselves or they see each other as rivals. So if a seller increases the price of a product, now please note, if a seller increases the price of a product, a quantity supplied in the market may fall if other sellers that are selling the similar product hold their price constant. Now, suppose you and I, we are sellers in a particular market. If I increase the price of my product, but you hold the price of your product constant, my quantity supplied may fall. Why? Because consumers will not buy from me. They will rather prefer buying from you. Why? Because your particular product commands a cheaper price, even for the same commodity. So if I increase my price, my quantity supplied may fall if you keep the price of your product constant, because consumers will be willing to buy more from you than from me. Because remember, the law of demand says the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. So if I increase my price as a seller, you will be willing to demand less from me. That's for that. Then we also have cost of production. How does cost of production influence the supply of a particular product? Now, we know that cost of production refers to the prices of inputs. When we talk about inputs, we have the factors of production, we have land, labor, and capital. And if the prices of such products increase, it implies that producers will be discouraged. The quantity supplied in the market would reduce compared to when the price of inputs fall, because it's from our inputs, the cost of inputs, that determines the quantity of output supplied to the market. So if the price of inputs increase, that's the cost of production. If the price increases, it implies that producers will only be able to buy limited amounts of inputs, and as a result of this, the quantity supplied to the market would reduce. Conversely, in another scenario, if the cost of production, the price of inputs fall, it implies that producers will have abundance of quantity to supply to the market. Now, government policy. When we talk about government policy is basically based on taxes and subsidies. If government increases the tax on a particular product, it implies that producers are constrained from supplying more to the market, and as a result of this, the quantity supplied to the market would reduce. But conversely, when you talk about subsidies, subsidy is a provision by the government to producers. So if government provides subsidies to producers, this encourages them to produce more, and if they produce more, it implies the supply to the market would increase. Now, if government reduce the subsidy granted to producers, that means producers are discouraged from producing more, and as a result, their quantity supplied to the market would reduce. But conversely, if government reduces tax, producers will be encouraged to produce, and as a result, their quantity supplied would increase in the market. Now, last but not the least is size of industry. As we all know that when we talk about an industry comprises of a group of firms producing similar products. Now, if the size of the industry is actually very, very large, it implies that there are more producers in that industry. Or in another case, we can say there are more firms in that industry. And as a result, this is similar to the case of population in our theory of demand, as we discussed. Now, if there are more sellers in that industry, it implies that the quantity supplied to the market would increase. But if, for example, we have a single monopoly in the industry, it implies that the quantity supplied to the market is limited. But if we have abundance of sellers in the market or in the industry, we have higher quantity supplied. I hope you understand that. Then moving on, we have how to represent our supply. We have supply schedule, we have supply function, and we have supply curve. So basically, when you talk about supply schedule is a table. Basically, it's just a table showing the relationship between prices of the product and quantity supplied at different prices of such product. Now, this is in relation to our theory of demand. We also have demand schedule. Supply schedule is basically a table showing the prices of products and their corresponding quantities supplied to the market. Now, let's just give a simple illustration. So basically, this is an extract of a supply schedule. It shows that at the various prices of a particular commodity, suppose this is the supply schedule for rice. That means at when price is zero, suppliers won't be willing to supply more to the market. And as a result, the quantity supplied is actually low compared to when the price of the product increases. When price of the product increases to 2, the quantity supplied increases to 40. When the price of the product is 4, the quantity supplied increases to 60. So that's basically what supply schedule is all about. It's basically a table showing the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied of a particular product. Now, moving on to our supply function. Now, basically, similarly to our demand function, we said demand function is an equation showing the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now, it's still the same for supply function, but supply function is an equation showing the relationship between quantity supplied of a particular product and the price of that product. Now, please, it should be noted that for supply function, we have a positive relationship between quantity supplied and the price of the product. What do I mean by positive relationship? Now, this follows that in the law of supply, we said the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. That means the variables that are moving in the same direction. Now, when price increases, the quantity supplied also increases. So that's what I mean by there's a positive relationship. When price increases, the quantity supplied increases also. And when price falls, quantity supplied what it falls. So that's what I mean by there is a positive relationship between the price of the product and quantity supplied of that particular product. So that's basically what supply function is. And for example, we can see this is an example of supply function. QS equals 20 plus 8p. So this is a mathematical equation showing an example of a supply function. Now, note that for demand, the sign in this place will be negative because there's a negative relationship, or there's an indirect or inverse relationship between price of the product and quantity demanded. But for quantity supplied, there's a positive relationship between the price of the product and quantity supplied, as I depicted here. For quantity supplied, I repeat once again, there's a positive relationship, or there's a direct relationship between the price of the product and the quantity supplied. Now, moving on to the last, we have our supply curve. So basically, supply curve is just a graphical illustration showing the relationship between the price and quantity supplied. And this is an example of a supply curve. This is price and quantity supplied. And note, for quantity supplied, remember we said there is a positive relationship between the price of the product and quantity supplied. The supply curve moves upward from left to right. This is an example of supply curve. This is not a demand curve. A supply curve moves upward from left to right. Now, the implication of this is because there is a positive relationship, like I said. Now, for example, let's take this price as P naught, for example, Q naught. Let's call this Q naught. Let's call this P1. Sorry, and this is our Q1. Looking at this diagram, when the initial price was P naught, where the quantity was Q naught. Now, price increases from P naught to P1. And the implication of this is an increase in quantity supplied from Q naught to Q1. That's why the supply curve moves upward from left to right. This is as against the demand curve that is downward sloping from left to right, because there is an indirect relationship between the price of the product and quantity demanded. But in the case of supply, there is a direct relationship between the price of the product and quantity supplied, following the law of supply. So basically, that's all on the theory of supply. So I remain Dada Martins, and I pray that as you study hard for your exams, the Bible says the end of a thing is better than the beginning thereof. I pray that even beyond your efforts, I pray that the Lord will grant you mercy in Jesus' name. And please, in our next video, I'll be treating the concept of the indifference curve. That is also a critical topic that candidates usually face in UTME exam. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Be sure to link up with us, message us, seek out our email, send us messages for further questions and mentorship after you have seen these videos. I'm very happy to say this again, that it's a time for you to move on and succeed. It's a free success project 2025. Bless you everywhere that you are. Again, my name is Emmanuel Aderoju Adeyemo from Creative Minds Concept.